When people say we don't talk about money enough, they rarely ask who's supposed to stay quiet about money and who doesn't have that luxury. Because when we really take a closer look, money talk is historically shaped by class. Some people can literally afford silence. They don't need to explain what they earn, how they spend, or justify what they charge. For others, silence isn't a privilege. Because if you don't talk about money, you can't survive, let alone grow. For creatives, staying silent about money doesn't just limit personal growth, it directly impacts your cash flow, how you price your work, and whether you attract the clients that you desire. That's the real class divide. And that's what we're diving into today. I'm just going to give a bit of a heads up that it might sound like I'm anti-high class, upper class, but I'm not. I'm just pointing out what it is that I've seen and bringing to the surface a conversation that isn't openly had. This is part 2 of the money series. I call it Origins of Silence. In part 1, I spoke about the historic roots of money and how our discomfort with price didn't come out of nowhere. This series is here to unpack why talking about money still feels loaded. So let's talk numbers. In the UK, the richest 10% of households hold 43% of all wealth, and the bottom 50%, just 9%. This is from ONS 2020. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, in the US, the top 10%, they hold 70% of all personal wealth. Look at any other country, the similar patterns will appear globally. Every different country will have its own system, but the result will be the same. Wealth is concentrated at the top. And wealth isn't just income. We're talking property, inheritance, assets. Did you know that just in the past 8 years, the UK's wealth gap has grown by 50%? Why is this so important? Well, wealth determines social mobility, who gets to move up and who stays where they are. There was a survey where they surveyed 36 countries. Over half of the people surveyed said wealth inequality is one of the country's biggest problems. So this isn't just theory. It's reality shaping everything from opportunity to how comfortable you feel saying, here's what I charge. So why do the rich stay quiet? As you can imagine, this is going to be rooted in the cultural. If you've ever been told or heard that talking about money is tacky or crass, that didn't just come from nowhere. Historically, for the upper class, money talk was seen as vulgar. Now, for many people born into affluence, silence isn't malicious, it's inherited. When wealth is inherited, when access has always been a given, money becomes invisible. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to ask for it. The world is already designed to serve you. You don't talk about food until you're hungry. That's because need drives the conversation. Silence becomes elegance, discretion becomes power, and it's reinforced socially too. I've seen this myself. I'm half Swedish and half Pakistani. Pakistan used to be a British colony, so I've inherited a lot of those class values. Growing up, I was taught not to talk about money. Obviously, no one said, don't talk about money. But you'd hear the judgment in the room, or shall I say, the silence in the room when someone mentions money the wrong way. The disapproving comments about those people who talk about money too openly. We were taught to see silence as class, and research is backed up by it. People in the top 10% are more likely to have most of their friends in the same income bracket. That's beyond the bubble. That's a fortress. And inside it, there's no need to talk about money. No friction, no challenges. Silence, it doesn't just happen. It's taught. It's passed down, just like wealth. And this isn't about blaming people who have wealth. It's about asking why the conversation around money is shaped to protect power and how that affects the rest of us. Let's flip it for a moment. For working class and middle income families, money isn't abstract. It's painfully real. You talk about bills, you compare prices, you swap tips. You have to, not because it's polite, because it's necessary. And for many, it is actually survival. In business, not talking about rates or project costs isn't just a social taboo. It's what keeps many creatives undercharging, overworking, and missing out on bigger opportunities. Being transparent with peers and clients is often the first real step towards building a business that actually thrives. But here's something that surprised me. In this research, I discovered that countries that are actively trying to reduce inequality, places like my home, Sweden, Denmark, and Germany, you might think everyone would be aligned on fairness. High taxes, free healthcare, subsidized childcare. I mean, it's the dream. You'd think that more redistribution equals more unity. But actually, the class divide in attitudes, it's been growing wider. People in the upper middle class circles, those who benefit from stable services and decent incomes, often feel like they're already doing enough. They're paying the high taxes. They contribute, so when new policies come in to rebalance things even further, it can feel to them like they're being punished. Even if they believe in equality, when it starts to affect their comfort, the generosity has its limits. Meanwhile, working class people still support redistribution because they're the ones feeling the gaps. They're the ones falling through. So what you end up with is this tension. On paper, things look fair, but underneath there's division. In values, in voice, in what fairness even means. And that's the part no one really wants to talk about. Once again, silence. So let's bring this home. Who benefits from the silence around money? The ones who already hold power. It's the ones whose wealth is protected by the systems. Not because they built them, but because they were born into them. But the power we're talking about here isn't just money in a bank account. It's the most powerful thing of all, which is influence. The wealth has the ability to shape decisions, policies, markets, often without even showing up on a ballot, often without it ever being questioned, because it doesn't enter that space. You see, money gives access, and silence protects the access. So in a way, silence, it stops the redistribution. It protects privilege. In the business world, silence also means creative professionals leave money on the table, because clients are rarely the ones who offer to pay more than you ask. Closed-door policies and unclear pricing perpetuate pay gaps. It decreases trust and makes scaling your business much harder. And worst of all, it makes inequality seem like a you problem, not a system problem. But here's what's changing. Movements for pay transparency, open salary databases, founders and freelancers sharing what they earn, what they charge, what they regret. This isn't oversharing. It's a sign of resistance. Breaking the silence helps everyone, not just those who are struggling, but even those who have money, those who want to use it ethically. Talking about money isn't just a personal act, it's political. It's structural. So if you take one thing away from this episode, pay attention to who tells you to stay quiet and ask yourself who benefits. Because maybe what we've been taught is elegance is really just a form of control, not purposefully, but is exerted nevertheless. And maybe that discomfort you feel when talking about money, maybe it's not negative. Maybe it's a sign that you're waking up. What could shift if we talked more openly about money, class, and power? Not to perform, not to impress, but to understand, to dismantle, to build something better. Talking about money isn't rude, it's necessary. And maybe the most radical thing we can do is say the number out loud. Because when we stay silent about rates, about value, about what things really cost, creatives and consultants end up undercharging, over-delivering, and missing the chance to build truly sustainable businesses. When you hear this, you realize why it's so difficult for people to talk about what they charge. But you also start to see that opening up these conversations, this is the foundation of fair pricing, better clients, and real growth.